A film about the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad, due out this week, has sparked protests from some Muslim people outside cinemas across the country. The backlash has caused Cineworld and View Cinemas to pull the film from their theatres. Well, joining me now is Malik Shlibak, who is executive producer of that film, and Shahid Ali, who is a Muslim cleric who organised some of the protests. Just to you, first of all, Malik, just tell us about the film, The Lady of Heaven. What is it about?
Sure, Jane. Thanks for having me on. So it's The Lady of Heaven, about Lady Fatima, peace be upon her. She's the daughter of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family. And it's her life story. It's a film depicting her life, her struggles, the journey she went through. We believe she is the best figure in history for us today to learn from, to know how to tackle things such as extremism, radicalism, and corruption. And we felt it's important to share this story with the world.
I mean, it is a deliberately provocative subject in many people's eyes. Why did you choose to make a film about it?
I mean, that depends on who you ask. Any religious topic you tackle is going to have disagreements amongst different groups. We feel this topic is crucial because it actually elaborates on the roots of terrorism. In fact, we present the history as the history is. We're not presenting an over-romanticized version of history. We spent a year in pre-production making sure the history is accurate, and we are showing what they've done to Lady Fatima, which is her killing by Abu Bakr and Umar, and the killing of her father by Abu Bakr and Umar. And I guess, other people who have different views of history who don't agree with this have issue, and one of them being your host today, who's organized these extreme protests across the country that have bullied cinemas to take it down by chanting death threats, chanting Shia infidel, and calling for the killing, directly saying, in their chants, kill Sheikh al-Habib, the writer. And even some of the protesters holding up ISIS photos. So, okay. It's a historical narrative.
Well, let's bring in Shahid Ali, who is one of those protest organisers. What is your justification for protesting against this film? As we've heard from one of the film's producers, it is a film which represents one story. It is a work that he would regard as history. Others would regard it as a work of fiction. Why do you feel you have a right to stop it being shown?
First of all, Jane, thank you very much for having me on with yourself today. Our reservations primarily are the false narrative of the early caliphs of Islam, the closest companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, of them being terrorists. These figures are revered throughout the whole Muslim world by the vast majority of 2 billion Muslims across the globe. And if they are portrayed in this divisive and inflammatory and inciting movie as terrorists, and then Muslims who naturally love and revere these figures, who are our founding figures of our religion, then this creates an impression in the viewer, especially those who have little or very minimal knowledge of Islam, that the central figures of Islam are indeed terrorists, and all Muslims who revere them and honor them are similar. So this is an extremely dangerous and a sectarian narrative which is very extreme. I mean, our guest here mentioned Yasser al-Habib, the Kuwaiti extremist cleric, who was in fact imprisoned in Kuwait for his extreme views. And in fact, the Iranian government, which is also of the Shia school of thought, has actually banned this film. And leading clerics of the Shia school of thought in Iraq and in namely Ayatollah Khamenei, and also of Iran, and Ayatollah Sistani of Iraq, they have issued edicts forbidding the Shia community from insulting and mocking the figures, slandering the holy personalities of the Sunni tradition. Now, what follows from this is, I would just also like to mention, is that there was a meeting of clerics, in fact, yesterday in London, Sunni and Shia both, who all condemned this film and said that this film being brought into the UK is a means of dividing us. Sunni-Shia relations in this country have been good since we have come to this country. There has been no communal tensions, there has been no violence amongst us. We have got along. You have your beliefs, we have ours. We live and let live, and there's mutual tolerance. And this film is extremely inflammatory, divisive, and obviously it leads to further sectarian hatred and division. And we find it totally unacceptable for someone who is neither accepted by mainstream Sunni nor Shia scholarship, for them to peddle this. I find it extremely shocking for this to happen in
Shahid, let's bring
modern-day
in
Britain.
Malik to give his response to that. It's a divisive, inflammatory film. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, he's free to have his opinions, no problem. The issue is if he tries to overstep his boundaries like they have been in the protests to try to censor other people with different views. I find it quite shocking that he's, portraying this calm demeanor today about tolerance when his very group of people, I mean, him himself encouraging the crowd. You can see videos all over the internet of them shouting, "Infidel Shia, infidel Shia." And, anyone who knows anything about radicalism, they know that means in their language, you are permissible for us to kill. Your blood is permissible, as they put it. So, and calling for the killing of the writer. Which type of tolerance is this? The real tolerance, if you want tolerance, is to tolerate that there are many, many different views in the religion of Islam that many different groups within Islam don't agree with. He's speaking about Ayatollah Sistani, who is, arguably the most influential cleric in the Shia world. He hasn't spoken out against this film. There's no statements from him or his office against the film. And it's very well known that Sistani, and to be very honest, the overwhelming majority of the Shia world, which is hundreds of millions of Shia, who very much agree with everything in this movie. I assure you, I'm a chairman of a research institution, and we work with professors and academics across the world. This is very well known to be mainstream Shia Islam. If your guest isn't aware of that or anyone else isn't aware of that, so you have no right to speak on this authoritatively. And
Shahid, I mean, it is clear, Shahid, that I just need to bring Shahid because we are running short of time. But Shahid Ali, it's clear that this film isn't aligned with your vision, with how you see it. But
definitely,
as Malik said, what right does that give you to stop others seeing it? You talked about bans in Iran and Iraq. We don't live in those countries. We live in the UK. There aren't blasphemy laws here. We live in a free society. Anybody should be able to see it, should they not?
Yeah, we have freedom of speech in the UK, and that's understandable, even across Europe. However, freedom of speech is not something which is unqualified. It has its restrictions. I mean, I'm not sure whether you'll be aware of the Alison Shablo's case in 2019 of somebody who sang a song which, denied the Holocaust. And I mean, it was held to be contrary to the fundamental convention values of tolerance, social peace, and non-discrimination.
But that is very different. This is a film that people can choose to go and see. This isn't somebody doing something out in society. This is something that people will make a choice to go and see.
It's an expression, but it's still an expression. It's still freedom of speech. It still applies to expressing your views. And I mean, when someone openly expresses their views against, let's say, gay people, then it's homophobia. Or someone openly expresses their views, of negativity against Jewish people or their religion, it's anti-Semitism. When it's against black people, it is racism. But when it comes to Muslims, it's freedom of speech, and Muslims are really fed up. And, we do not go around insulting others, and we expect, mutual respect from others as well. And just to mention a point about racism, it's very shocking that this film, the characters who are the villains, supposedly, according to these, producers, they are enacted by black actors. And that is shocking. I mean, how can we have a film which portrays those who are supposedly murderers of their own prophet, murderers of his, attempting the murder of his daughter, murdering her unborn son, and then, spreading this terrorism. I mean, and then they are also enacted by black actors.
Sorry,
against black.
We are running low on time, but you're talking about rights and about lack of discrimination. The reason that this film has been pulled is not... I mean, it's been given a British Film Institute certificate. It's fine to show in the UK, according to the BFI. The reason it's been pulled is because the cinemas are saying that they're worried about their staff's safety. Don't these staff have a right to go to work without you protesting outside and making them feel unsafe?
Everyone has a right to go to work freely and safely. That's, of course, that's undeniable. But we went to these protests. There were no arrests. Nobody got hurt. I mean, there was no property damaged or anything of that sort. And in many protests, we have seen far worse happening. But why is it that when it's a group of bearded men or Muslims, you know, they are immediately demonized and, you know, portrayed very negatively? I find that very unfair and very, you know, unrepresentative of what actually occurred. In fact, one of the managers of the Cineworld in Sheffield, he came out and he said, we want to maintain good relations with our community. We want to look after our customers and we understand your concerns. Therefore, we would like to pull this movie out. And they have kept their decision and we thank them. And we thank them for their understanding of our feelings and of our having respect for our values and our religion. Because just as we have respect for others, we expect that from others for us. And the point that he mentioned here by our guest regarding infidels, if someone is declared an infidel religiously, theologically, that does not mean that he is legal to kill. And if he thinks that in his understanding, I mean, he's used that term for the closest companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Okay. I mean, his leader, his cleric, his cult leader, Yasir al-Habib, has even written a book, you know, attacking Lady Aisha, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Okay. And he's mentioned Ayatollah Sistani and Ayatollah Khamenei and the leading Shia clerics of Iran. Them scholars have issued edicts, you know, not to insult these holy figures of the Sunni faith. And Sunnis never insult and attack any of the companions, the family, or the wife
Shahid
of
Ali, Shahid Ali, I'm going to have to get you to stop there because we are running out of time. And Malik Shlibak, executive producer of The Lady of Heaven. Thank you both very much for joining us today.
I didn't try to reply, Jane, if possible, please.
Thank you.